On August 15, 1976, a SATA Airlines flight took off from Quito, Ecuador, bound for Cuenca. The plane, a Vickers Viscount 785D, was carrying 55 passengers and 4 crew members. It was supposed to be a routine, short flight, but it turned into a mystery that lasted for decades. Extensive searches were conducted, but no sign of the plane, passengers, or crew was ever found. For over 25 years, the location of the Viscount's wreckage was a mystery, leading to many theories about what happened to the plane and its passengers. Some of the wilder ideas included alien abductions and an area similar to the Bermuda Triangle in Ecuador. A more believable theory was that guerrilla fighters had hijacked the plane. This theory gained some traction because another SATA Viscount was taken over by 6 hijackers on October 20, 1971, and ended up at Moriscal Lamar International Airport. The Vickers Viscount 785D was a reliable aircraft, known for its spacious cabin and large windows. It was a popular choice for smaller airlines because of its dependability and low running costs. Despite its good track record, the disappearance of Flight 232 left no clues and baffled authorities. 3 years later, another SATA Airlines flight, Flight 011, also disappeared on the same route. This second disappearance was eerily similar to the first. But in 1984, 5 years after its disappearance, the wreckage of Flight 011 was discovered on a mountain slope at an elevation of 5,500 meters in the region of Shelmera, Pastaza province. The aircraft had mysteriously deviated 46 kilometers from its intended course. Although the wreckage was located, the cause of the deviation and crash was never determined. The discovery ended years of speculation, including a theory of hijacking for drug smuggling, but left many questions unanswered. The accident resulted in the deaths of all 57 people on board. This discovery provided some answers for the families of those on board Flight 011, but it did nothing to solve the mystery of Flight 232, which remained missing without a trace. In February 2003, 2 mountaineers, Pablo Chiquiza and Flavio Amos, were climbing Mount Chimborazo, the highest mountain in Ecuador. As they made their way up the steep and icy slopes, they stumbled upon a shocking sight. They found the wreckage of an old airplane. Among the debris, they saw luggage, newspapers from 1976, and well-preserved bodies still strapped into their seats, frozen in the cold. The plane they had discovered was SATA Airlines Flight 232, which had disappeared 26 years earlier. On August 15, 1976, Flight 232 had taken off from Quito, Ecuador, bound for Cuenca. The plane, a Vickers Viscount 785D, was carrying 55 passengers and 4 crew members. It was a routine flight expected to last less than 2 hours. The last communication from the plane was at 8:27 a.m. when the pilot reported their position over Ambato, Ecuador. After that, the plane vanished without a trace. When Chiquiza and Amos found the wreckage of Flight 232 on Mount Chimborazo, they also spoke to a local villager. The villager revealed that the military had found the plane years ago but never reported it. This strange revelation suggested that the wreckage had been discovered long before but kept secret for unknown reasons. Determined to bring closure to the families of the victims, Chiquiza and Amos wanted to inform the authorities. However, they faced resistance from a retired military officer named Gallo Arita. Arita insisted that the news had to be given to the Ecuadorian president first. Months passed with no official announcement. Finally, the mountaineers managed to speak directly to the Ecuadorian Minister of Defense. This led to a full military expedition to the crash site. The wreckage was officially confirmed as that of Flight 232. The families of the 59 occupants, who had waited 26 years for answers, finally learned the fate of their loved ones. The site of the wreckage on Mount Chimborazo was difficult to reach, which had helped preserve it. Given the inaccessibility and the challenging climb, it was decided to leave the site undisturbed. It was declared a sacred place, off-limits to climbers and tourists. The remains of the passengers and crew, along with the wreckage, remain on the mountain, serving as a somber reminder of the tragedy. After finding the plane's wreckage, there was much discussion about whether the flight data recorder and cockpit voice recorder, often called black boxes, though they are orange, were on board. The aviation authority stated that the plane did not have these recorders. However, Patricio Mosquera, a former pilot of the same model plane who had flown it just before the crash, believed it had at least the flight data recorder, which he thought was required by regulation since 1976. But he wasn't sure if it had the cockpit voice recorder, as too much time had passed for him to remember clearly. Carlos Serrano, a former vice president of the airline, also believed that the plane and its sister aircraft, which was bought at the same time, were equipped with both recorders. In a significant decision, the families of the victims agreed to treat the crash site of Flight 232 as a sacred place. This meant that the search for bodies and wreckage was stopped, and no formal investigation into the crash was conducted by the aviation authority or local legal officials. As a result, the exact cause of the crash remains unknown. The mystery surrounding the military's initial silence and the untouched state of the site added another layer of intrigue to the story. The delayed revelation of the plane's location brought an end to a long period of uncertainty and speculation. For many families, it provided a form of closure, knowing the final resting place of their loved ones. The story of SATA Airlines Flight 232 is a poignant tale of loss, mystery, and eventual discovery, highlighting the enduring impact of such events on the families and communities involved. Although SATA Flight 232 was a disaster, at least it was found. As for the case of MH370, it is not even known where it is. On March 8, 2014, Malaysia Airlines flight MH370 took off from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, heading to Beijing, China. There were 227 passengers and 12 crew members on board. The plane, a Boeing 777-200ER, took off at 12:41 a.m. Everything seemed normal at first. About 38 minutes after takeoff, the plane made its last contact with air traffic control.
Malaysian 370, contact Ho Chi Minh 120.9. Good night.
Good night, Malaysian 370.
At 1:21 a.m., the transponder, which helps track the plane, was turned off. Suddenly, the plane disappeared from radar screens. This was the beginning of a mystery that has not been solved. A large search operation started right away. At first, they looked in the South China Sea, but then they learned the plane had changed direction. It flew west across the Malay Peninsula and into the Andaman Sea. Data from satellites showed the plane kept flying for many hours. This made the search area very large, covering parts of the Indian Ocean. Despite the hard work of many countries, no trace of the plane was found in the first searches. This left the families of the passengers and crew very worried and sad. Without any evidence, many ideas about what happened to the plane were discussed. Some people thought it was hijacked. Others thought there was a technical problem or that the pilot did something wrong, but without finding the plane, no one could be sure. In July 2015, over a year after the plane disappeared, a piece of the plane was found. This piece, called a flaperon, washed up on the shore of Réunion Island in the Indian Ocean. It was confirmed to be from MH370. This was a big discovery, but it did not lead to finding the rest of the plane. More pieces were found later, but the main wreckage and the important black boxes have never been found. The mystery of MH370 has led to changes in how planes are tracked to make flying safer. But many questions remain. The final location of the plane and what happened to everyone on board is still unknown. The story of MH370 is a sad reminder of how difficult it can be to find a lost plane and how hard it is for the families who are left without answers. The case of MH370, much like SATA Flight 232, shows the challenges in solving such mysteries. But while the wreckage of Flight 232 was eventually found, bringing some closure, the fate of MH370 remains a mystery, leaving families and the world waiting for answers.